I once ate an entire box of Cheez-Its after a very super stressful day without even realizing it until the box was empty. I've eaten entire frozen pizzas and I've seen the bottom of way too many ice cream tubs to count. And this is all coming from somebody who has been in the fitness industry professionally for, 21 years at the time of filming this. Emotional eating can absolutely wreck your fitness progress. It can keep you in the bathroom all night, and it can pretty much never take away the stressful situation that led to your snacksident to begin with. Emotional eating can look like eating a sleeve of Oreos after a brutal day at work. Been there. It can also look like ordering pizza every time after you get some really bad news. And even things like rewarding yourself with food that you don't normally allow yourself to eat in order to celebrate when something like your fitness progress or something else has gone well in life. Okay. Most people think emotional eating is related to lacking discipline or lacking willpower or having some sort of food problem. And I 100% disagree. Okay. Some of the most disciplined people on the planet still struggle with emotional eating, and it is not food. It's usually another vice like smoking, drinking, drugs, or another numbing agent like mindless TV or doom scrolling. It can be food, but it does not always have to be for these disciplined people. That's because emotional eating is usually not the problem. It's actually a symptom, or in this case, one of many symptoms. Today, I want to show you how to stop treating the symptom of emotional eating and start addressing the root. When we do this, we can fix it. Before we get into anything deep, though, I want to make absolute certain that I spell this part out. There is nothing wrong with pizza, Cheez-Its, Oreos, or any of those foods if you're having them in moderation. And on my channel, I will teach you how to do that. But if you're doing what I've done many times in the past, where you're eating your feelings or you're using food as a reward or punishment or to change your state of emotions of where you're at, it's going to slow your fitness progress at best and keep you unhealthy at worst. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go through all of these. I'm going to go pretty quick because I want to make sure that we get to the root of all of this. Okay. So before we go digging into deeper stuff, let's make sure that we're not overlooking some of the easier fixes, because sometimes we might go into the more challenging things and it's something simple. Okay. So let's dive into this. Are you getting at least 7 hours of sleep each night? 7 to 9 is going to be ideal. If not, start there. Are you moving around consistently every single day, or are you sitting or standing in the same position most of the day? This would be a sedentary lifestyle. Are you eating enough protein and nutrient dense foods, or is a lot of your day filled with processed foods and empty calories? Are you going too long between meals before eating, so by the time you do actually get your next meal, you're just starving? Are you maybe doom scrolling and flooding your brain with stress and dopamine hits? If any of these things are going on, no wonder you're craving comfort foods. If you're exhausted, if you're sedentary, stressed, underfed, overstimulated, fix all of these obvious things first if any of those are you, and you're going to notice food cravings and emotional eating goes out the window. Okay. If you're doing these things already, let's go into the rest of it though. If you are already getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, you're not eating nothing but processed foods, you are getting, let's say, at least 5,000 steps a day, and you're exercising, cool. It's probably not one of those simple things that's affecting your emotional eating. Okay. So whatever your vice might be, we're going to handle that in this video, whether it's emotional eating or something else. We're going to get to the root of it. Okay. So number one of the deeper stuff, once we're past the sleep and the sedentariness and all that, I realize it's not a word. When we get past all of that, now if we go, okay, this is going well, this is the part where we have to look into the deeper stuff. Now, this is the part where most people are just like, they can't figure out why they're emotional eating. They can't figure out why they can't stay on track long term. Well, number one, you might lack pattern interruption abilities or strategies. Most people try to solve emotional eating while they're emotional. It's kind of like not practicing for a sports game and then wondering why during that game you didn't play very well. You've waited until the game time to try and put in the practice to notice weak areas, okay? When you've done this, it's already too late. This is kind of like a recovering alcoholic trying to go to the bar to order a diet soda or a water. You're around something that is going to be very, very challenging to stop the emotions because you're already knee deep in it. Okay. It's going to be much too challenging to do that. By the time you're standing in the pantry, by the time you're ordering the pizza, by the time you're driving to get the ice cream, the emotional momentum, it's already rolling and it is in full steam. This is not the time to try and convince yourself or to shame yourself into not doing this very thing. Now, if you've got that willpower, go for it. But this is not how you actually solve this from the root. Pattern interruption is about changing your state. When I say state, when you feel in a fear state or a scarcity mindset, this is your state of being. And that state is usually uncomfortable. When that state is too uncomfortable, we begin to reach for something, drugs, alcohol, food, TV, anything that pulls our mind into another direction where we can feel like the state of depression, the state of lowness, the state of loneliness begins to lessen. Okay. Now, pattern interruption is about changing this very state that you're in without using food to do it. Okay. Changing your state like changes, let me say it this way, changing your state changes your emotions. And therefore, it's going to reduce the cravings and the intensity. And it even allows you to think a bit more clearly before walking in the flesh instead of walking in the spirit like the Bible instructs, okay? We want to walk in the spirit, not walk in the flesh. When we walk in the flesh, we're turning ourselves over to temptations and we're not necessarily thinking of what is the wise decision to be made in light of my future aspirations and goals and in lieu of my past failures, neglects, or troubles. This is where we can do when the emotions subside. We can't necessarily do that, at least not as well, when we're right in the middle of the emotion, okay? So change your environment. Go outside, take a walk, call someone, pray, get around people, open up the Bible. Any of these things, especially when you're practicing it before the emotional situation happens, is going to change your emotional state without leading to other consequences. What I mean is, if you go order a giant extra large pizza, yes, it's going to change your state. You might temporarily feel a little bit better afterwards because you don't feel as like maybe on fire, whatever you might describe. You feel a little bit better about your situation. You've gotten a full belly, you ate something. Usually the thing that we're going to choose is going to have some form of, well, sometimes it's going to have fats in it, but basically it's going to stoke up a little bit of our happy emotions where we feel a little bit better about the situation until the shame hits in, the guilt hits in, and we're like, oh, why do I do this to myself? All of this stuff happens, okay? What we want to do is actually interrupt the pattern before it runs its normal course. Don't underestimate this, though. Don't just be like, oh, okay, I'll pattern interrupt. Guys, this is what I've been using for ages with my clients. Acts of wisdom sometimes seem the simplest, okay? Galatians 5:16 says, but I say walk by the Spirit and you will not carry out the desire of the flesh. Okay, so the Bible is telling us that this is possible. What we have to do is train ourselves to walk in the Spirit and not in the flesh, so that when the high emotions or the low emotion happens, we're not eating our feelings, we're caring for those feelings. Because again, guys, if you don't know this, feelings of sadness, overwhelm, loneliness, these are all feelings that are giving you a warning signal on your dashboard to say, solve this by doing something different. If you're lonely, does food solve loneliness? Not that I've ever seen, not that I've ever experienced, but calling someone can solve loneliness. Visiting, having somebody pray with you, having somebody come visit with you, reaching out to somebody, explaining something, going to a counselor. Any of these things can help with loneliness. Food is not going to do it, though. And that is going to be one of the number one issues on why emotional eating still exists. Most of the time, people are trying to use emotional eating to change a state, and they don't even realize that's what they're doing. So they think, man, I have no willpower. Every time I'm stressed out, I do this. No, you have plenty of willpower, but you've never even made it okay to think about that you're solving a problem with the wrong solution. If you're tired, you don't go get a drink of water, right? No. When you're tired, you realize it's time to go to bed. You're solving your emotional problem. I feel tired with bed, with sleep. So when we feel lonely, overwhelmed, etc., normally, again, if you're watching this, chances are you are a Christ follower. If you're walking in the spirit, you're going to begin to introspect, and you're going to begin asking yourself, what does this really mean? What is really going on? And am I really going to solve the problem with food? Now, a couple different things that I give my clients for pattern interruption. If you are in the middle of an emotional situation, what I'm going to say is, if it's a small situation, give yourself at least 5 minutes before you go to the vending machine, before you order a pizza, before you eat food. Give yourself 5 minutes to go do something physical, walk away, and stir up different chemicals within your body that are going to at least give you a fighting chance to say no to that thing, because you are, or to say, I'll have some, but not the whole thing. Meaning, okay, it does sound good. I can fit it into my calorie budget, my food budget, whatever, but I'm not going to just eat my feelings and hope that I'm just doing this to feel better. Okay. Same thing as if it's a little bit more advanced of a problem, take more than 5 minutes. What we have is the 5 minute rule, the 1 hour rule, and the 24-hour rule. If you just got fired or your boss is demoting you, your 5 minutes is not going to be enough, and 1 hour may not be enough. 24 hours is. This is where you give yourself 24 hours to sulk, to cry, to do all your things and lament. And after that 24 hours, now you're going to make any decisions. Okay. Now, in that time, if you get something bad news wise, and you're giving yourself the 24 hours, what I would at least recommend is that you don't use that 24 hours to fill it with food. Fill it with areas where you're going to get rest. You're going to get wise counsel from other people. And at minimum, you're going to turn off noise and turn off other static around you, so that you can hear your thoughts and you can think about what you desire most in order to solve the situation. This is called a pattern interruption, and it works amazingly. Okay. But let's go and move on to the next one. The next one might be that you don't have enough margin. Now, a lot of emotional eating is really just overwhelm. You're overscheduled, overcommitted, you're running on fumes. When this happens, margin of time, margin of energy are lacking, and you choose junk foods or empty calories out of sometimes convenience, sometimes availability from lack of preparation or planning, or cravings from emotions and low energy. You wouldn't spend every dollar in your bank account, though, yet people spend every ounce of energy, every minute of time, every bit of emotional capacity. So they're pouring from an empty cup most of the time, and then they wonder why they're reaching for food that normally isn't something that they want to reach for. Now, again, I want to reiterate, there's nothing wrong, especially if you do things the joyfully fit way. I have pizza, I have ice cream, I have cookies. There are no foods that are considered off limits for me or for my clients, and they shouldn't be off limits for you. And you might be going, no, but you don't get it. I've got this, that, and the other problem, and I'm a food addict. Those are all different issues, but 9 times out of 10, there's something that's going to be deeper, and you're simply solving another problem with food as a solution. That's all. So what I'm pointing out here is that you don't drain your bank account. So why would you feel like it makes sense to drain your energy, to drain your time, and to leave yourself so pressed up against the wall with time, with energy, and everything, that the only choice you have is to go to fast food or to get high processed foods that make you feel pretty low or make you feel crappy later? These are the sort of things that we want to consider actually creating margin. So margin is kind of like having a reserve tank of gas, like the old cars used to. Okay. So back in the day, there used to be these cars where basically you'd have a full tank of gas. And if you go where you're running on E, you could click over to this reserve tank, and this reserve tank might only have 1 gallon, maybe 2 gallons in it, but it's going to get you from, oh crap, I'm in a bad situation, to, well, I'm going to make it by the skin of my teeth to the gas station, but I'm going to make it without having to push my car. That's a reserve. All that is margin. It's very intelligent. So when we leave margin for ourselves here, this means that we're not going to make it so that you're getting home in just enough time to get sleep when you're starving. You're not going to leave yourself just barely enough space where you can't, prepare your food, or at least slow down enough to choose foods that are a little bit healthier and fit your goals. So margin is a huge, huge factor. It means considering that if your energy gets too low, you're likely to get hangry, new word over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and pull through the drive-through for a burger and fries, or to order a pizza. Or if you're always short on time, you're more likely to have time only for fast food or quick processed meals. And that's only leading to less energy and more emotional eating and less results. It's all because of margin. I've had so many clients over the years say, "Well, Lance, I didn't have a choice. You know how it is. Work went late, then this happened. I had to pick the kids up, and then next thing we knew, we were pulling through drive through McDonald's. What was I to do?" Well, it wasn't what you were to do today. It's the fact that, just as an example, maybe you've told your kids that they can play three different sports at once, and you're trying to keep up with grades and kids taking them places, and you're trying to get yourself fit so you can lead your family, and you're just spread too thin. So what we have to do here is figure out what we need to back down and what we need to say no to so we can say yes to your health. Because the bottom line is you are making a choice. You're saying either no to your health and foods that make you feel better, get healthier, and have more confidence, or you're saying no to the foods that are quick and that basically you can choose when you didn't prepare, you didn't plan, and you didn't leave yourself margin. But when you say yes to these foods, the McDonald's all the time and the quick foods, and all because you're in a pinch, you are going to train yourself, number one, to get that and to train yourself to believe that the story is if you're short on time, McDonald's and Taco Bell and all those are your only options. Now, again, I want to reiterate nothing wrong with getting fast food. We get fast food. I'm not going to suggest that it's the same as what it was 20 years ago. It's not as whole, and it's barely food. But the point is, if you want to eat that, I teach the 80-20 rule, which 80% of your calories of what you eat should be holistic, nutritious foods. 20%, not once a week, not once a month, every dang day. If you want to, 20% of your calories, 1/5 can be processed, junk food, fun foods, fast foods, whatever. But if you go more than that 20%, you're going to be asking for trouble. So what do we do here? We create more margin. Now, I can't do that on one video with you, but I can get you thinking about areas you may be lacking margin. If you want more help to figure out how do I do this, reach out, send me an email, comment below, let me know, and I will help you however I can. Now, Mark said 631 says, come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while, okay? Now, this particular thing here, Jesus is talking to the disciples about creating margin for energy and time because they were so busy that oftentimes they didn't even have enough time to eat. So again, I could go on and on and on about, and you might be going like, well, that's rest. That's not margin. It is the same thing. Rest is still a form of margin. If you don't have enough margin in your life, you won't have the time to rest because you're going to be borrowing from another area of activity, et cetera, et cetera. It just keeps on going. So if you do not have enough margin, there's a high probability you are going to eat more emotionally, or you're going to eat foods that are convenient, quick, processed, which means that you're likely not going to get enough thermic effect of food, meaning that you're leaving fat loss on the table. You could end up having loss of muscle because you're not getting enough protein and you're not actually providing enough nutrients. Not to mention that most of the foods, when you go for these quick places, they're very calorie dense and not very nutrient dense. So and they have a lot of chemicals and sugars and things that are going to cause you to crave more of them. So what happens is they taste delicious, but they don't necessarily satiate or solve anything. So you want to reach for more and more. I know myself because I love food. If I go eat like a 7-ounce chicken breast that's, tastes good, like something like you would get at a banquet hall, and green beans and mashed potatoes, because that's kind of like what we eat, I'm going to feel full without overeating. And it's going to taste good. Like if you're cooking dry chicken breast and eating stuff that's all dry, you need help in that area. It's not all health food and nutritious food should taste like feet. Okay. My point is with this is that when you're eating healthier, you're going to be significantly less likely to overindulge. When you're eating these foods that are so empty, they are going to be so much easier to eat more and more, and you're not even going to get the signal that you're too full until you're excessively full. And it's going to be easy to eat 1,600 calories in the same exact time as what you would have eaten 600 or 700 with a healthier meal. Okay, so think about rest and margin, because this is something that's going to give you a better, let's say it's going to give you more leeway to actually make sure that you're not emotional eating as often. Okay, the next one, you may be numbing yourself instead of solving the actual problem that you're using food to solve. This is where things start to get a little bit deeper. So I want to make sure that I'm very clear. Most people use food to numb themselves or to escape momentarily from what's going on in their life. Loneliness, disappointment, anxiety, frustration, discouragement, burnout, bad news, guilt, maybe. Okay. Food changes your state, but it only does so temporarily. And that's why people do it. It works. You might feel different. It doesn't mean that you feel better about your situation, but you feel different. You don't feel as low. You don't feel as low energy as before you ate that food. Okay. Food changes your state temporarily. But afterwards, the problem is still there. It's not solved. It's not reduced. The anxiety is still there. The disappointment is still there. Nothing is solved. And now there's often guilt on top of it because you just ate foods that you're telling yourself that you normally would not eat, or you overate foods that you know you don't need to overindulge on. Okay. So if you're trying to get healthy or stay healthy, each time this happens, you're also casting a vote to stay in your old habits and more of the old life that you're trying to improve is basically you're casting a vote to say, yeah, I want to stay here. I want to keep on solving my deeper emotional problems with food and shame and guilt. That's essentially what we're doing. Now, again, I'm not judging. I have done it so many times. You want to hear some funny stories? I've got them, believe me, and they're all embarrassing. Okay. So I say that not from a place of judgment, but to just to say you got to do things differently. Okay. So low energy, higher body fat, high inflammation, low confidence is what we're trying to improve. So when we're choosing these foods, when we're emotional and we've got this situation going on, we're exacerbating the very things that we're trying to overcome. Sometimes what you really need though is prayer, to get into the word, wise counsel from a godly person who understands your specific situation, a conversation with somebody who knows you, rest, which is still part of that margin part, a solution to the actual crisis or the problem or whatever you're going through instead of just numbing it. Okay. Food, drugs, mindless TV, drinking cannot provide these things. We'll stay stuck in emotional eating or whatever vice until we focus on solving the problem or caring for our need instead of numbing or distracting ourselves to it. Okay. Is this making sense? So we want to stop and ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Okay. Never mind the fact that you're craving food and you feel just so disappointed and overwhelmed. What am I feeling? Am I lonely? Am I feeling discouraged? Am I anxious? Am I angry? Am I overwhelmed? Once you know that, then you want to ask, what would actually solve this problem? Or what would be related to this problem? Because food dang sure isn't, right? So if every time we got hungry, we went to sleep, we'd starve. It would make no sense. Sleep is the wrong solution for hunger. Emotional eating often works the same way. You're applying food to a problem that needs a totally different solution, and yet we're reaching for food. Okay. So Philippians 4:6 through 7 says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Prayer solves anxiety better than pizza and junk food ever can. And if we're ignoring the very things that God gives us as instruction to overcome, because he calls us overcomers, he says that we're more than conquerors. If we're choosing food instead of conquering the situation through prayer and supplication, do you think that that's really taking us closer to the Lord? Do you think that that's taking you closer to good health? I certainly don't. And I've been there. Okay. All right. So the next one is your thermostat setting might just need to be adjusted. Okay. Now, when I say that your thermostat setting, what this means is that a thermostat is basically a belief of your capabilities, of who you are and what you're capable and all of this stuff. Okay. And oftentimes that thermostat setting is not set by us, it's set by others. So as an example, maybe you had an older brother that was really good at school and you were not, or an older sister or younger, whatever. And you considered yourself to be a C student. That labeling of a C student or an average sports player, that's a thermostat. And if you believe that you're a C student, your actions will not be able to be out of congruence or alignment with that belief. What do I mean? You believe you're a C student. Is there any chance you're going to study like an A student when you believe you're a C student? Not at all. You don't even know what that looks like because you're too busy seeing yourself as this idea, as this C student. So you behave in accordance to what you believe to be true. You study like a C student, you talk like one, you prepare like one. And so you're not shocked when you get C's. It's just a self fulfilling prophecy of, I'm a C student. Well, this is the same as your thermostat with any other areas. The Bible says that as a man or a person thinks, so they become. It's also said that we are what we repeatedly think and do. And when we believe things about ourselves, our capability and traits, this becomes our thermostat. And we act out the things that we believe to be true about ourselves. So if you're saying things like, well, I'm an emotional eater, I've always struggled with food or with my weight, or I have no discipline, or Lance, my willpower just isn't there like it used to be. Ever since I turned 40, 50, I'm just a high stress person. Or another, there are so many things people say with such conviction, like, no, you just don't get it. I'm the kind of person who, and then you fill in the blank. Okay. Now, the thing of it is like I said, there's so many things people say with such conviction and emotion about themselves, and they believe it over time that it becomes essentially that they have programmed, even put another way, they have hypnotized themselves into believing something. Okay? It's what the Bible is for, so we can unhypnotize ourselves to the things that the world has convinced us are true. Okay? Sometimes it's repeating or buying into things that parents or teachers or siblings said about you or to you, where you're like, well, my teachers used to always tell me, I'm just such a talker. I'm so distracted. I just can't seem, my brain doesn't work like everybody else's. Blah, blah, freaking blah. Everybody has spoken all kinds of negative things about you, but why don't you ask and see what the Lord says and stop agreeing to it? Stop coming into agreement with it. Okay. And this is where we're talking about here. So, before I go on, others, it's believing that your history is somehow your destiny. One of my favorite quotes is that my history does not determine my destiny. And guys, I have so many mistakes in my past. I am so grateful to God for grace and mercy, and that my history does not impact or determine my destiny. Okay. The same with you. It doesn't matter if you've had 30 years of eating struggles. That's your history. It's not your destiny. It's only going to be your destiny if you choose to let that be your thermostat and you behave in accordance with such. Okay. So the opposite is true. Your history is not your destiny. Be careful what you repeatedly tell yourself or come into agreement with that someone has said about you or to you. Negative self-talk becomes beliefs. Beliefs become identities. Identity creates habits, and habits create outcomes. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You want to fill yourself up with the word and speak only what the Bible says is true about you. Replace negative self-talk and thinking with scripture and verses affirming who God says you are. He says that you're more than a conqueror. He does not say anything about you being low and an emotional eater. Those are things that are circumstantial based on learned habits, traits, or how we handle stress. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm a foodie. I love food, and I have battled emotional eating for ages. But the truth is I don't battle emotional eating. I battle handling my emotions either in a, we'll say, fleshly way or in a wise spiritual way. When I do it fleshly, I eat my feelings. When I do it spiritually, I don't do that. And that's the idea here. Okay. So practice this daily and meditate on it. If you constantly identify as an emotional eater, don't be surprised when you continue producing emotional eater outcomes. It is that simple. As a man thinketh, so he becomes, or so is he, or she in this case, even though when it's saying man, it's meaning mankind. I digress. So if you let yourself repeat thoughts of your past mistakes, errors, and such, understand that you are meditating and focusing and dwelling on things that you don't want to be true anymore. When you take yourself plus the past, it usually leads into depression and guilt and shame. If you do today plus tomorrow, it's usually going to be anxiety and worry. The Lord made us only able and capable of focusing on today. And again, the word says, don't worry about tomorrow. It's got enough problems, it'll handle itself. That today has enough problems for you to focus on. Put another way is that God's giving you the energy to apply that to today's problems only. How can you solve tomorrow's problems? You can't. So this is why we want to focus on today. We don't want to fall into this sort of thing where the thermostat is controlling us and controlling our behaviors, okay? So change your mind, that will change your life. Now, the last thing I want to mention to you guys is that you got to take your thoughts captive. Now, again, anything that I say here, like I'm saying this, I'm preaching to myself right here. I got to do this as often as I can. And that's what the word says. Emotional eating often starts with thoughts long before it starts with food. Stinking thinking, fear, assumptions, anxiety, worst case scenarios. And again, the Bible talks about not giving way into vain imaginings. Well, what is us thinking about all the worst case scenarios and trying to overcome those things in our mind? Thinking about vain imaginings, right? This is us thinking about things that we were not equipped to handle yet. So 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, talks about taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, all right? Now, Myron Golden has an awesome thing on taking your thoughts captive, and Pastor Alan Nolan has an amazing one on taking your thoughts captive, and they can do it quite a bit better than I can on there. I would highly recommend you checking those out, especially because I don't have time to get into all of that. But let me tell you something. When you do this and you recognize a thought that's like, hey, that does not align with the word of God, it simply calls you to go, Lord, this thought here of worry and anxiety, I know is not from you. You bring a nudge for me to pay attention for things that I need to change, or you'll bring conviction and it feels like a check in my spirit. It doesn't feel like fretting anxiety, like my nerves are on fire. That's the enemy, okay? So many people are feeding thoughts that they should be fighting, okay? What you repeatedly think affects how you feel, and what you feel often affects how you eat, what you do, how you behave, what you speak, all of this, okay? So a lot of this stuff with emotional eating really does start off with, if you're a believer, getting in the Word, being in the Word each day and asking the Lord to help you to walk in the Spirit, not the flesh. Now, that's in the basic, that's like the foundational part. The rest of this, as I mentioned, it takes a little bit of effort, but once you start taking this effort, you solve the root instead of the symptom, meaning that you're not trying to go, oh man, I'm so tempted right now and I want to eat these fries, and okay, I'm going to count to 10 and I'm going to do this and that'll work. Those are all the things that most people are out there giving. What I'm saying is, by the time you're there, yes, you can do pattern interruption things like 5-minute rule, 1-hour rule, 24-hour rule, and it works. But if this is happening regularly and you've got a lot of stress and a lot of things that you're worried about and your thermostat is off and you're not giving yourself margin, it doesn't matter that you use a pattern interruption, because you're setting yourself up for pattern interruption after interruption after interruption, because there's something at the root that needs to be resolved. Again, I ask, does this make sense? Drop me a comment below. Let me know if this is resonating, if this makes sense. All right, guys, in closing, emotional eating is usually not about discipline, willpower, or food addiction. It's often stress, overwhelm, overthinking, lacking self-care, identity struggles, and spiritual flesh battles. Emotional eating is just the symptom that follows, nothing more. When you start solving the real problem instead of numbing or escaping, emotional eating begins to lose its grip on you forever. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. If this resonated, if you feel like this is helpful, please don't forget to give the video a like. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with a friend. It helps so much to get videos out to more people. So thank you guys so much. I will see you all on the next one. Also, lastly, don't forget, check in the description box below, and you'll see, if you want to take this a little bit further, you'll see exactly how to do that. Thanks so much, guys.